What's up, guys? Leland here with Untitled Tyrants, and I wanted to bring you guys my top 5 games of 2022 after playing games all year. And I have 5 games, and then one kind of runner-up that was a good game, but needs a lot of work, is probably the best way to put it. But let's jump into it. First is going to be my runner-up, and that's Achtung Cthulhu. It is a good game. It needs some work. We struggled with it. It uses the 2d20 system, which I really like, in which you always roll 2d20, but you can pull in momentum dice that you've generated as a group of PCs to increase your odds of being successful, which means you're very much strategizing with your other players to get the best player to go first. So they can hopefully generate a bunch of these extra dice that go into a pool, and then people can pull from that pool to do an object, to do a thing. So if you are good at shooting guns, then you want to shoot first, hopefully generate some extra dice by doing so good at shooting that the other players who aren't so good, if it's the professor who's not as good at shooting is going next, he wants to be able to pull some of those momentum dice that you've generated with extra successes to do well. So say you're really good at shooting, so you roll 4 or 5 dice and you get a success, and you only need 1 success. So anything over that generates momentum dice, and I think you can get up to 6 or 7 if I remember right. So I love that aspect about it. The problem mainly was with the magic system in it. It was very tough to use, and the spells were very underwhelming. And then the second problem is they use specific dice, which I get it. I'm a dice guy. I play Warhammer. I play all these games that require amazing dice. If you play tabletop role-playing games, you love dice in most instances, I would say. But their dice, only like half the sides are blanks, and then the other sides are 1 hit, 2 hits, and like the special symbol that can do special effects. Like if a weapon has, catches you on fire, then if you roll the special effect dice, it does 1 hit, not 2, 1 hit, and does the special effect, which again is like weird to me. It's like, why not at least bump it up so it does 2 hits plus the special effect when you roll the little Cthulhu symbol? But no, it's just 1. So the dice, I guess what we ran into is, I would make a very hard shot for a player character, like a sniper rifle, let's say. He would shoot the sniper rifle. He needs 3 successes, which was really hard for him, even with good skill. He makes all 3. There are cheers all around. Then he gets to roll the damage dice. Problem is, those damage dice are these D6s. There's a potential you don't roll any damage. He would make the hardest shot with this amazing roll and then roll no damage. And that happened over and over and over, or it would just be like 1 damage. And it was just like, okay, so you shot a guy 600 meters away and you hurt him for 1. And it was just so frustrating for my players. So I guess much like in D&D, at least you can do some damage. If you hit someone with a dagger, you're going to be doing between 1 and 4. Some players or some GMs just use like a set deal. If you stab them with a dagger, you do 4 damage, stuff like that. So I know that happens. This, you not only have to hit, but then you have to roll to damage, and there's a potential, and a pretty good one. It's almost a 50-50 roll in many instances, that you're going to do no damage with like a weapon that rolls 5-6 dice for damage, and you feel like you're going to get this mega powerful hit. Nope. You might get it, but there's also just as good a chance, 50-50 shot, that you could roll all blanks, and even though you made the hard shot, you do no damage somehow. That was a problem. So we will make modifications to the game, which every game I get, and every game in this list, I have to say, I've taken the game and modified it to the way I want to play it, because that's the type of DM I am. I take what I like and I chuck what I don't like. And so things like that, those damage dice, while cool, looks great, unique dice, don't look like regular D6s because they got symbols on them instead of numbers. They're not usable and they're not fun. So that's my runner-up. I'll go faster on the next ones, guys. Here we go. Number 5, and I know this is going to feel like a hot take type of thing, but my 5th favorite game that I played this year, and I'm going to explain, obviously, is 5e. And before you start, I hear the keyboards just going crazy. 5e is great at everything. It's good at everything. It's not great at anything. It's a great structure for any game you want to play. You want to do anything in the fantasy world, 5e is perfect. You want to do anything, I ran it with X-Men. You want to do with X-Men, perfect. 5e as like a structural point. But it doesn't, it's either too much rules for people who don't like rules, or it's not enough rules for those that like those crunchy game rules. So it's that weird middle child that no one loves for players. But it means that it's so flexible. It's so good that it can be used for any story. Future, sci-fi. I used it for, I guess, my number 4 game. Let's jump to it. Legend of the Five Rings. I hate the Fantasy Flight version. They have crazy dice with all these symbols on them that no one can understand. I spent a whole session trying to teach. It was trying to do a one-shot, and I was trying to teach them using the Fantasy Flight dice. I just chucked them, and we just started using D20s because no one got it. They didn't understand. They tried to do a cool new thing with dice with lotus flowers and little petals and stuff on them. Doesn't work. It's a dead system now at this point, so it doesn't matter. But I took it, made it 5e, just used 5e for it and translated everything, which wasn't really that hard, to be honest. And now there is a book, I'll throw it up on the screen, for 5e, a 5e version. They did a great port of it. So again, 5e is perfect for playing any game you want as a structure. It's not good as a role-playing game because it doesn't have enough rules or has too many rules depending on what the player wants. Finally, my last note about 5e before we jump back to Legend of the Five Rings is that there's a shortage of GMs. I go to my local shop every Wednesday and they're dying for me to be out there to play because they always need GMs. We pulled in a lot of these players, and I know the other channels are talking about this too, but there are so many players and the player handbook is so, can pull you in. Problem is no one wants to be a DM, and that's a Gen Z problem, and that's a thing like that. Like, all the DMs are my age, Gen X or older, to be honest, I would say. Not a lot of millennial GMs. Well, I say that, and all the other bottom table tyrants are millennial GMs, but they don't go to those shops and play. So if a new player who doesn't know my core group, that is all GMs, they're hosed. They're not going to find someone to go play with. So shops need help. 5e has a GM problem. I agree with all the videos that other people have thrown out, Dungeon Craft and other guys that are talking about the GM problem. There is one, and I can't make more of me, so I don't know how to fix it other than to encourage those younger guys, younger girls to jump in there and try to be GMs. I promise you're a player too, and it's a lot of fun. It takes creativity. It takes a creative mind. It takes a creative person, and I understand that that's not everyone. I get that. But it is very fulfilling and very rewarding. So I think we'll figure that out. It's going to get figured out, or the game will wane, which is fine. It's seen unbelievable success in the last 2-3 years, anyways, during COVID. So there's going to be ups and downs. We're probably heading towards a down. Not a problem. It'll trend back up eventually. It'll have a new heyday eventually. So that's all I got to say about that. On to Legend of the Five Rings. The reason I love it, and it's my number 4 game, is clans. You have these clans, you have these archetypes that are clans instead of, rogue, warrior, stuff like that. There are these clans, and the clans kind of set the tone for what you are. You can be a cavalry type of person. You can be a demon hunter. You can be an assassin, kind of ninja samurai. Everyone's a samurai. You're just a samurai plus whatever that clan is good at, be it magic or loyalty, kind of honor, or dueling, like one-on-one sword fighting versus, one against everyone in the middle of a battle, and diplomacy, things like that. So there are, all of the different clans have their own aspects, and they all fight against each other. There's no good guy. Everyone is just clans, and you're going to see that in most of the games that I like. I don't like if there's a good guy and a bad guy. I want there to be levels of gray. There's all these groups vying for power, like the real world. There's no good guys and bad guys in the real world. There's just different governments, different organizations, different criminal organizations, different things that are all vying for power. Some are good, some are bad. Some might be good one year and then bad another year or another day. So they all are making decisions based on if they want to help themselves or help others, etc. So I love the clans because they're all fighting against each other, and then there's the Oni demons to the south who are always trying to invade. So every once in a while they have to get their stuff together, cooperate, and go beat down the demons. So there is bad guys, quote unquote, but even the bad guys have kind of a, hey, you let us, the demons who are all part of one brother, all the clans were this family originally, and they let one brother like fly into hell when they fell from heaven, and so he's come back to get revenge on them. So he has his own reasons, which are evil but kind of valid, because he's like, hey, you guys let me fall in hell and didn't come rescue me, like what the heck? So he brings an evil hell army back to get revenge on them. So again, he's got his reasons. So I love that. And I love the fact that you have to deal with all of these factions, and it's encouraged to have a different player be a part of every different clan that you have. So you're dealing with, you have your loyalty to your clan, but you also have a friend who's, a Scorpion clan, and he's not such a bad guy. So you have to work that out. Lots of great character interactions, lots of good NPC interactions because of that. Number 3, that's going to be Shadowrun. This is my all-time favorite game, guys. I'll tell you that all day. Shadowrun 2nd edition also needs to be 2nd edition. 3rd, they took 2nd edition and busted it. 4th on is just like, I don't know what they were thinking. Well, to be honest, what happened is FASA, the company that made it, went out of business, and they sold it to like Tops, and a bunch of other companies took over it. And it's never been the same. And mainly, I think it's mainly because people who didn't know about the older generation, the old 2nd edition, stuff like that, just kind of tried to make it by themselves, and it's never worked. So all the other versions I've ever seen, they're not good. And I will admit that Shadowrun is a bad game if you don't use 2nd edition, I would say. 2nd edition has its problems. It's a D6 based system. You can run into situations where you're rolling like buckets of dice and you almost can't fail rolls. But I like to use things like exploding dice, where if you roll the 6, you can keep rolling and stuff like that. So you always can do a thing. Even if you had one die you were rolling, if somehow miraculously you rolled like 3 6s in a row with that one die, you're going to accomplish pretty much anything, because rarely that would be a crazy difficulty score to be over like 12 to 18, something like that. So even with one die, there is a chance. Now, it's a very low chance, but there is a chance of doing something, even if you're only rolling one die. But there is, as you grow a character, you can get to where you're rolling like 12, 13, 14 dice. That's where it starts to get silly. But so does so many other games. How many other games, when you get to level, 11 to 20, does it almost get silly where you're just so overpowered that you almost have to make up crazy supervillains to even be able to fight back against you? Similar thing in Shadowrun. The other reason I love it is that it is fantasy and sci-fi or cyberpunk mixed together. So you not only have cyberware and hacking and futuristic corporation stuff going on, you also have elves and dwarves and magic and all the best parts of fantasy mixed into all of that. So you'll have an elf gang that's fighting a dwarf gang about who gets to rob the evil corporation and take over, steal their new piece of tech that's an awesome sword or cyberware piece that they want to install on their best fighter. So again, factions. You're dealing with gangs. You're dealing with organized crime groups like the Yakuza or the Mafia. You're dealing with these different corporations, one that makes medical technology, one that makes hacking technology and good cyber programs and stuff like that to go on the Matrix. So it has hacking and stuff like that, to where you can hack all the good things about cyberpunk. You can do with Shadowrun, but also you have all the fantasy elements as well, which is why, to me, it has the edge on cyberpunk, and I will defend that till I die. I like cyberpunk. It's a good game. But adding in the fantasy is better because it just gives you more options. And much like you'll see in other things I'm talking about, more options for story is better because you have not only cyber technology and cyberware, but you have magic and you have dwarves and elves and all the fantasy part of it. So I love it because of that. Shadowrun 2nd edition is my number 3. Number 2, and this is a great one because it's coming back. It had a weird stall moment, mainly due to the pandemic, but Cubicle 7 is making a game called Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory. So I have been a longtime player of Shadowrun. I'm also a longtime player of Rogue Trader and all of the Fantasy Flight Warhammer stuff that they did. I want to say it was Only War and Black Crusade and all the stuff like that. Loved all those. Hate D100s. D100s suck. I do not like a D100 system. So while I loved the story and the grim, dark space thing, I hate a D100 system. And this brought it back, made it a D6, which I feel is very GW. If you're going to do Games Workshop product, it probably should be D6s. Actually, what I did is I took it and made it D10s, because what it is it's a D6, but it's a 50-50 roll. If you roll a 4+, and if you play, meaning a 4, 5, or 6, then you succeed. That's a successful roll. If you roll a 6, then that counts as 2. So it's like a double hit. So if you need, say, 3 successes, you could roll a 6 and a 5. That's 1 for the 5, 2 for the 6. So that would get you your 3 successes. So that's how that works. All I did was expand that to a D10. So a 6+ instead of a 4+ is 6 through 10 are a save, or a success, sorry. And a 10 is the double success for me. I like that better because I like D10. Again, D100 should always be D10. Just roll a D10. You don't need to roll 77%. You need to roll 70. So roll a 7. There you go. D10. So I like the D10 personally better, and that's probably a weird remnant from my Vampire the Masquerade days, but the D6 works just fine. So you can run this game without changing the dice like I did. Not a problem. I'll probably make a whole video about this soon, but the main thing I like about space RPGs is you can go anywhere and you can take any story. I can take a Dungeons & Dragons story about fantasy and dragons, and I just go to a planet that has the technology of medieval times, and just so happens there's dragons there, and that they're the alien life that lives on that planet. So there's dwarves that have, they went to that planet long ago, they lost their technology, they had a dark ages, and now it's literally like medieval times there, and there's dragons and stuff. So I can have my space guys go onto a planet and run a Dungeons & Dragons adventure in the middle of space because that planet's technology and development is at that level. Next planet they go to can be a cyberpunk planet that's fully developed and has all of these corporations and technology and stuff like that. Next planet they go to can be a barren wasteland with just, I can run like a Dark Sun type deal where it's all a desert planet and there's just these savage barbarians running around and, sandworms and stuff. It allows me to run any story I want. All you got to do is the next system they pull into, guess what? There's a planet that I want to run the story that I just found for any system. In space, it can be run because any planet can have whatever the conditions you are needing to run that story is the next planet you show up at. So that's one of the reasons I love space so much, is because I can take any book, any adventure book from any game and use it in a space setting because I can make the planets be whatever I need them to be. The next good thing I love about them is they use the Wrath, Glory, and Ruin system. I want to say Doom because Achtung Cthulhu used a Doom and Momentum system, which Momentum helped the players, Doom helped the GM do mean things to the players. This is very similar. Wrath helps you do, it's not re-rolls with Wrath, but it lets you do things like move yourself around on the initiative track. Like if you want to go before the enemies, but you've rolled low but you generate some Wrath, then you can jump that up. And you generate Wrath by getting, you have one die that's always like a different color than all the other dice you roll, and you always roll that die, very much like the hunger die in Vampire the Masquerade. You always at least roll, if you roll one die, it's going to be your Wrath die. If you get a crit on it, if you get that 6, then you are going to get a Wrath token, and that Wrath token can be used, and also it can be stored or upgraded to a Glory token, which Glory token is kind of like Inspiration. It can do stuff like reroll dice, add dice, stuff like that. So it's like a better version of Wrath with a lot better abilities, and it gives you a whole set of them. Please, guys, go look them up. They're all good. It's all things to do cool stuff during combat, do more damage, add things into the storyline, just like any of the games I have now. It's just a fun way to do it. So you generate this pile of Wrath and Glory for your player characters. You can only have one Glory per character at any time. much like inspiration, but otherwise you can get a lot of wrath and use it up and, burn it all at once to do big hits and stuff like that. Other thing they do is if you roll the 1 on that wrath die, you can generate ruin, which the GM gets, and he can use to also do janky stuff in the initiative track to like sneak a big boss up to do a hit early in combat, or much like the Doom, add more enemies, add plot twists, just kind of add corruption, make the PCs more corrupt so that they like start to mutate and things like that. It can handicap them some to keep things in balance. This game, and also the other Cubicle 7 game that I'm also going to talk about and sneak in here, is which is the Age of Sigmar version called Soulbound. Both of these can use either very peon characters in the 40k version up to like Inquisitors and Adeptus Mechanicus, like priests, and Space Marines. Again, you're going to see these guys in the game, and you can kind of pick. They have a tiering system, so you can pick the power level of your game. If you pick a high power level, you're probably going to want to do this as a one-shot. And I would definitely say that for the Soulbound, the Age of Sigmar one. It's probably one of the best one-shot systems that I've ever seen. You're able to use these super-powered characters. They're all soulbound together, unless you're a Stormcast Eternal. And those guys, you generate these soul tokens that you can use to, roll more dice and help each other out and re-roll things and stuff like that. So has a similar thing as the Wrath and Glory, but a little different in that you're this like team that's all linked together through your souls, and you're all super powered. So I like it because of that. I use a reverse experience thing in when I run these. Soulbound, I've only done one-shots, so I've never used like experience or upgraded the characters. They all come super powerful at the start anyways. But in the 40k version, Wrath and Glory, I use fate tokens. So every time you fail a roll, you gain a fate token. It's kind of like karma in Shadowrun. Every fate token you gain, you can eventually, when you have a break, or, usually when we take pauses is when my player characters will say, hey, I have enough fate to upgrade this skill or attribute, and they'll pay the amount. Attributes cost double. So if you're trying to go from a 4 to a 5, you have to pay 10, which is double the amount you're trying to go to. For skills, it's just 1 more. So if you're going from a 4 to a 5 and like gunnery, then you just pay 5 for the amount that it needs to be, and you can go up from there. Your max in the skill can't be higher than the attribute, if I think that sounds right, which is very much like how Shadowrun works as well. So I tried this out. I really liked it. I think my players really liked it. No one tried to like game the system and like try to punch through a wall that they knew they couldn't or anything like that, because I would have shut that down. And I kind of set it up like, hey guys, don't abuse this system by intentionally failing. But when you do fail, you will generate these fate tokens, and then you can use them to spend it to build up the thing that you weren't good at whenever you weren't good at it. Now, I did have one character that like rolled amazingly for 2 or 3 sessions and never generated any fate. So they were kind of like, well, that's not fair. And I'm not able to level up because I'm never generating a fate. And I was like, yeah, but you're successful in every single roll you've rolled for like 3 sessions. Think about that. Have you ever done that in 5e or anything else? No. Okay, you're doing fine. You don't need to upgrade because you're successful in all your stuff. When you start failing, you'll get some fate. And eventually they did. But I guess that was probably the only real frustration. And even then, it was almost like silly once I pointed it out. They're like, yeah, that's true. I was successful for 3 sessions straight on multiple rolls each session. So I can't really complain. So great system. I really like it. I've talked to Cubicle 7 because I'm running this at Adepticon. Hey, I'm running games at Adepticon. I'm running Wrath and Glory and Soulbound just to promote them. I've talked to Cubicle 7. They've given me some just little promo-y type stuff. They gave me some supplements that I'm going to review on the channel, and I'll be there. So if you guys want to try and come play with me, I'll be there. I don't know if any of the other tyrants will be coming. Noble usually comes with us, if you know Noble from the channel, and Josh might come with us because he has family that's close, so I'm trying to talk him into going. So those are probably the 2 maybes that are the closest, and hopefully they see this and know that I'm pressuring them into it. But otherwise, I don't know who else might jump in, but hopefully we'll get more guys. So others may come, but those are the games that I am running and will be available to play, and you can sign up for on the Adepticon registration that comes up in like January 8th, I want to say, but check so you make sure you do not want to register late. You will miss everything. Everything gets filled up in like the day they open, so it's important. But So if you want to play with us, come play with the Tyrants, Chicago, next year, March. Don't know the dates exactly, but next video I'll definitely be spouting them out. So come play with us. We'll be playing those games. Final note about the Warhammer Soulbound. The Stormcast Eternals lose their memories as every time they die, they go up to Azir and are recast and come back down and keep fighting. So you can never die as a Stormcast Eternal. But every time you die, you lose parts of yourself, parts of your memory to be specific. That is a game master's dream if I've ever had one. So I'm so excited about the system for that because, and I will always ask if a player is like, what should I play? I'm going to say that. Now, like I said, they don't have souls, so they can't be in the soul-bound group, but they're also these Sigmarines. They're these Space Marines of the Sigmar world. So they're super powerful, and again, they can't die. So they're pretty good, and I'm sure that a lot of players will want to play them. They're neat, they're cool. They are the trademark character of GW Age of Sigmar stuff, just like the Space Marine is for 40K. So I anticipate always having at least one or two in any playing group, and I'm going to use that thoroughly because of the fact that you have this memento type of session where you can throw in new memories. You could do things where every time they die, they lose memories. So they start forgetting about their teammates and like who they are and stuff like that. Oh, it's a gold mine of awesome ideas and cool things you could do with the story. So another reason I highly suggest this is you could do so many cool, weird, mystery, memory things with the Stormcast Eternals as players in your group. Finally, guys, it's an extra 10 minutes longer than what I expected, but my number one game, and it's the same as number one from last year. I didn't do a video, but I will do this regularly every year at the end of the year. Tell you what I've played, tell you what my top 5 games are, but it's going to be Vampire the Masquerade. Vampire the Masquerade has clans, and the clans, just like all the other things, like we talked about in Rokugan and Legend of the Five Rings, like we talked about in Shadowrun with all the different gangs and corporations and all those things, like we talked about in Warhammer. Warhammer has all of the different groups. There's the Imperium, but are they the good guys, really? There's Mechanicus, there's, the Imperium themselves, there's the Ecclesiarchy. There's all these groups that are warring against each other and all trying to gain power themselves. So there's no real good guy. They like to say they're the good guys. They like to say they fight for the Emperor, but they're all competing against each other. And that makes for great social and combat interactions. The other part about the Vampire the Masquerade that I love is the World of Darkness. It's a totally developed system. It's been here since I think late 80s is when they made them. And some of those books are some of the best. Go back and get the old books. The new books are good. I hate the art in them, but I love the old art books, stuff like that. But Vampire the Masquerade is a good system. It is what I would call a skill-based system versus an attribute-based system. And it's similar in that there is attributes. But what you do is you take your attribute and your skill, and that's how many dice you roll. So if you got a 2 in this and a 3 in that, you roll 5 dice. One of those dice is always a hunger die. You can never go below 1 hunger die. And hunger dice are the key mechanic in V5. V5 is the current Vampire the Masquerade system. I highly recommend it. It's the best one yet. Which is hard to say. There's a lot of systems that have upgraded, and those upgrades aren't good. And I'm scared to death about this D&D 1 stuff. We'll dive into that eventually. But V5 is good. So, hunger dice. Let's go into that. As your vampire gets hungry, and things that happen, they take damage, they get stress, time passes. You will gain hunger dice and get hungrier and hungrier. And this is a ticking time bomb. You are a ticking time bomb. You have to deal with it. You have to feed. This forces a player character to go forward and interact. I love that. I wish every game had an ability to make my characters get out of the tavern and go do what you need to do. So this does that. It's a driver. It makes you have to either do a social interaction to go feed and seduce or coerce, or just ask someone to feed on them, and then, deal with whatever repercussions come from that. Or a combat situation where you, without consent, have to feed on someone and go deal with that. And that's what this game is about. you are a monster, and you have to deal with how do you handle the fact mentally, physically, that you are a monster and you have to accept what you are or not accept what you are and fight what you are or not accept that you're this thing. Is that thing evil? Is that thing good? What are you? You're a monster, but what kind of monster are you? And that interaction is amazing. Now again, it takes the right players, but I haven't found bad players for Vampire. If they want to play Vampire, they're probably going to be fine. I haven't had any bad, cringy situations with Vampire the Masquerade players. And I think people just understand that. And I think in the age of consent and all those things, that helps a lot. This game could have been pretty cringy in the 80s and 90s. I think now people know how to handle themselves a lot better, especially in social and public situations. And that's probably a good thing. Next thing about it is, okay, so you don't like vampires, but you hear everything good about this game. You can reskin this so many ways. There's books you can get that you can do wraiths. So you're ghost. You've already died and you're trying to interact with this other world. You are werewolves. If you don't like vampires, you can be a werewolf. There's whole werewolf clans. Again, you'll probably have to go back to the old books. But there's whole werewolf clans. They're way more earth-based and things like that, but they have the same type of mechanic where they build rage, and you have this internal beast within you that wants to burst out and tear someone's face off. And if you can lose control, which again, that's what this game is about. How do you control the monster that's inside of you? You have to manage that. So it's literally a built-in management system of yourself, which is great. And it leads to a lot of great gameplay. And then finally, you can be humans. They just came out with the Slayer version where you can be like the vampire slayers, which for me is always the bad guys. Obviously, they're always these corrupt, religious or like CIA type of organizations that are tracking and hunting the vampires to try and make sure they don't take power and announce themselves and, kind of take over the human race and use them as fodder, like some of them want to do for the Sabbat and things like that. So, great system, so many factions. That's what I love my player characters doing. I love them going to these factions, asking for their help. Maybe tomorrow they totally betray them and go with another faction. And, it's so good. You can just have so many double crosses and different deals and things like that you can do when you have a game with factions in it. So that's been the theme. If it has factions, I'm probably going to like it. So hope you guys loved it, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll keep doing this every year, but these are my top 5 games. Love these games. Tell me what you think. What's your top 5? Thanks, guys. Leland out.